In a couple of weeks, when most of the metro schools come back from summer vacation, students and teachers will see changes in security, both large and small. School districts here are spending millions of dollars on reconstruction, technology, and training, all in the name of keeping our kids safer. Just last week, school officials and police in Johnson County reviewed a new plan to help secure schools there. But are we spending money on the right things? And will all this really make a difference? We sent KCPT special correspondent Sam Zeff to find out.
If you're wondering what the shootings in Sandy Hook, or Columbine, or any of the other dozens of lesser-known school shootings has wrought, well, here it is. This is the Freshman Center in the Blue Springs School District, where they're spending $14 million of a $20 million bond issue to make a half-dozen schools safer. They're moving the offices to the front of the buildings, making entrances more secure, and even taking out some windows to make it harder to see in. In security jargon, they're hardening the target.
If the people say we want bulletproof and they want to pay for it, we put bulletproof windows in. So, you know, again, how much do they want to spend? The public will let us know how much they want to spend.
When it comes to school security, Blue Springs doesn't nibble around the edges. It's the only district in Missouri with its own police department with 7 full-time officers. In the past 5 years, Blue Springs has also bought more than $850,000 worth of cameras, software, and door control devices. But this is happening everywhere. In the last 2 years, Independence has spent $250,000 on security systems. Raytown has spent $1.7 million on everything from cameras to access control systems. And over in Kansas, in Olathe, they're spending $32 million of a $245 million bond issue approved last month on security upgrades to buildings and technologies. In just the last 2 years, the 10 biggest districts in the metro have spent over $55.7 million improving security.
There is no such thing as enough, because we don't want one child to be hurt. We don't want one child killed.
Indeed, school shootings have created a whole new market for security companies.
It has been absolutely incredible for our school district.
This is a promotional video from Cisco Industries, who is a major player in school security. So is Stanley Security Solutions, not to mention hundreds of local companies all around the country.
I didn't know there were so many vendors out there that do all this kind of stuff until we started getting our bonds going and getting contacted by them. Yeah, it's quite interesting. This is this big business now. So.
A huge business, actually. One industry study predicts that spending on school security systems will grow 80% by 2017, and some of that growth can be attributed to, not surprisingly, lobbying. A group called the Security Industry Association has lobbied Congress and wrote the president, pressing for more money aimed at school security. According to federal records, SIA has spent $1.6 million since '02 lobbying Congress. Even the makers of mace have made the rounds on Capitol Hill. Call it the rise of the school security industrial complex.
If School District A spends $1 million, School District B, which was planning to spend $500,000, now there's pressure to create the impression that their schools are just as safe as the schools in the next district over.
John Rury is a professor at the University of Kansas School of Education. He says much of this spending may be misplaced.
It's a human issue, and we want to make it into a technological issue. This is about people and their behavior and people helping each other think about their behavior.
Rury says more should be spent on training current school staff, and he means everybody from teachers to bus drivers, to recognize problems and solve them before they explode into violence.
The awareness has to come that we can actually prevent tragedies.
Which is something they're already doing at the UMKC Regional Development Center, where Dr. Julie Collins is the director. Right after Sandy Hook, the center reached out to educators to get the training going.
Do you think that it's easier to get money from legislatures, school boards, local authorities for cops and door buzzers than it is to do what you're talking about here today?
I do think it is probably easier to get funding for more tangible elements. We can see the presence of a school resource officer in the building who greets us and makes sure that he's aware of strangers who enter the building. What isn't always evident until we bring awareness to our community and to our parents is what are we doing also on the preventative measures to keep our schools socially and emotionally safe on the inside, as well as those external measures that you can actually see.
I'm not sure that adding additional SROs really addresses the threat other than making people feel secure because there's more people in uniforms walking around who are designated for that task. A task which probably can be carried out by existing school personnel without giving them guns.
Guns. You knew we were going there.
I don't want every person I know to be carrying a gun. But there are plenty of people in our schools that I would trust personally, that I wouldn't have any problem at all with my child being in their class.
State Senator Forrest Knox is a Republican from Altoona, Kansas. He was the chief sponsor of a new law that took effect in July that now allows school employees to carry guns, but only if the district says yes, and if the employee has a conceal and carry permit. A similar bill made its way through the Missouri General Assembly, and already the West Plains School District near the Ozarks has teachers carrying firearms. Republicans and some Democrats in both Topeka and Jefferson City embrace the NRA doctrine.
The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Our members have said overwhelmingly, we don't support that. We don't believe that.
Charles Smith is the Missouri NEA president who taught for 27 years in the Center School District in South Kansas City.
We're there to educate the children. That's our job. And not to carry pistols or carry guns and when we have someone who's trained to take care of our children, to take care of our employees.
But it's not just teachers saying no. EMC Insurance, who covers most of the schools in Kansas, says it won't insure districts that arm teachers. The company sent around this letter saying EMC has concluded that concealed handguns on school premise pose a heightened liability risk.
It feels to me like this is the marketplace speaking. That this is private industry saying, this is such a bad idea, we can't raise your rates enough to cover you. How do you respond to that?
This is the market responding, but the market's not one company. The market is multiple companies. My opinion is that this is an emotionally charged topic, and perhaps their response was more based on internal policies, which lots of times are based on the points of views of their management, rather than hard numbers.
In the end, the insurance will work itself out. Already, another company has stepped in and told 3 community colleges in Kansas that they will write a policy if the schools choose to allow guns on campus. But remember the Blue Springs district, which has its own police force? They don't want armed teachers either.
I know as a police officer, if we're in the schools, we don't want other people that are in the building armed. That way we know who all the bad guys are. But the training that we do, and we do with other, like I said, police agencies in the area, is very important. It's ongoing. It changes all the time depending on what's happened worldwide. Whereas some of those areas, they may not get that training and may not be as proficient in the qualification.
With billions more being spent on everything from cameras to cops, perhaps the most important thing to remember is this. Even with Sandy Hook fresh in our memories, American schools are among the safest places in the country. By one study, kids are 66 times more likely to die from parental abuse than school violence.
Right now, no school district in Kansas has decreed that it will allow teachers to carry guns, although the School Board Association says some rural districts have inquired about it. So far in Missouri, only West Plains has said yes to armed teachers. There are also questions about liability coverage flying around in several other states, which do allow teachers to carry guns in schools.